Bob Arum. I can't say these fighters don't see this. 1 minute he'll say, "Oh, Ali is one of the best that I had." Then it's Mayweather. Then it's Pacquiao, and then it's Lomachenko. Then it's this guy. I mean, these promoters, they kill me. I can't see how fighters right now, and it's not like I'm throwing shade. It's just that if I accomplish everything that I've accomplished, and I've done everything that I've done, how can you go to I look at guys like Terence Crawford.
Right.
Terence Crawford can be a lot bigger than he is. How can you make, and this shows that racism still exists. How can you say that Lomachenko is better than Terence Crawford? Not at all, not in a million years.
They say history repeat itself, and this can't be more true for what Terence is going through with Bob Arum, equivalence to what Floyd Mayweather went through. This is pretty much Floyd Mayweather 2.0. So after the #1 pound-for-pound king in the sport of boxing, Terence "Bud" Crawford scored a viral knockout that's trending as we speak against his toughest opponent up to this date, the Special K Brook, who's a proven veteran with an iron chin. It's rare to see a knockout in this fashion at this level. However, that's exactly what makes Terence "Bud" special. He's not just pound for pound #1, but on top of that, he's also one of the hardest punchers in the sport of boxing pound for pound as well. While welcoming all comers, Bud have stopped every single opponent at 147 that he have faced so far. That's why at this level, that's rare to see. Even a pure power puncher, for example, Gennady Golovkin, as soon as he stepped up in competition, he stopped getting the knockouts he used to get fighting C-level fighters. But when it comes to Bud, it's the contrary. With that in mind, you wouldn't believe what Bob Arum had to say about Terence Crawford coming off an unbelievable knockout victory. Mind you, this was not a knockoff performance by Bud Crawford like Bud always does. He don't just live up to the expectations, he exceeds the expectations and overperforms every single time. However, that did not stop Bob Arum from finding something negative to say about Bud, just like he did once to Rigondeaux. Bob Arum came out and stated, in which I quote, "Do we want to keep him? I could build a house in Beverly Hills on the money I have lost on him in the last 3 fights. I am not going bankrupt promoting him." End of the quote. Now, Bob had plenty more to say. However, I have to save the best for last because his follow-up comments are even more outrageous. For the meantime, I really want to touch on the business side of boxing just to prove that Terence Crawford is actually underpaid, not overpaid, for Bob to come out and claim that Crawford is pretty much bankrupt in his pocket, when it's the contrary. Therefore, I'm going to present facts, not opinions, to prove that Crawford lives up inside of the ring and outside of the ring. He lives up inside of the ring when it comes to his performances, being entertaining while getting spectacular KOs, and also outside of the ring when it comes to viewership and numbers every single time. Therefore, to gauge how accurate Bob's statements are, let's compare Terence to one of the highest paid athletes in the sport of boxing, which is Canelo Alvarez. Therefore, I'm going to compare both fighters' salaries and viewership on their own platforms. Also, I'm going to take in consideration when it comes to all the other elements that come into play. Starting off with Canelo Alvarez, he was getting paid on the zone $35 million guaranteed. Compared to Terence Crawford, he gets paid $3 to $4 million guaranteed. which when it comes to the salary, that's a huge difference, to say the least. Now, obviously, in the business world, that's pretty much the main input. However, the main output is the viewership, is the results. Therefore, the next thing to do is to compare Canelo Alvarez's highest viewership on DAZN next to Crawford's highest viewership. Obviously, when it comes to Canelo, the biggest numbers he pulled on DAZN were against Daniel Jacob. This fight was actually a unification bout, where Jacob was paid $15 million on top of Canelo Alvarez's $35 million salary. And they pulled in 660,000 views in the United States. However, worldwide, they managed to pull in 1.2 million. Obviously, just to point out, we comparing the numbers in the United States, which is the 660,000. Now, compared to that, Crawford's highest viewership on ESPN was against Benavidez, who got paid around $1 million or $2 million, and with little to no promotion for that fight. Crawford pulled in 2.7 million views on ESPN, which Crawford managed to pull in more viewership than any combat sport, including the UFC, on ESPN. Crawford is only competing with himself pretty much because he's always doing the highest ratings on ESPN every single time. Matter of fact, Crawford was the only ESPN fighter at the time that managed to outdo PBC fighters on ESPN. He did the highest ratings that year on any network. Matter of fact, the numbers were so high that was actually ESPN's highest ratings for the past 3 years up to that point. The last time ESPN pulled in that many viewership was all the way back in 2015 when Pacquiao fought Jeff Horn. Now let's do the math and compare the input versus the output for both Canelo and Terence Crawford. When it comes to DAZN, they paid both Daniel Jacob and Canelo $50 million to make the fight. That's not including the promotion money, so on and so forth. We're gonna leave that out of the equation. That's just the salary for the fighters. And in return, they pulled in 660,000 in the United States. Compared to that, ESPN paid off Crawford and Benavidez $5 million. However, they managed to pull in 2.7 million viewership in the United States. Now, mind you, Crawford versus Benavidez was not a unification bout. Benavidez is not a bigger name than Daniel Jacob. And to make matter worse, Crawford fight had little to no promotion compared to the Canelo fight. However, Crawford still managed to pull in 2.7 million viewership, quadrupling Canelo Alvarez viewership on DAZN. You will think Crawford should be the one that's getting paid $35 million with the numbers he's pulling in. So ESPN paid off $5 million to get 2.7 million viewership. On the other hand, DAZN paid off $50 million on the purses alone in order to receive 660,000 viewership. Pretty much DAZN had to pay off 10 times the amount ESPN paid off to Crawford. On top of that, ESPN quadrupled DAZN viewership, all thanks to Crawford. And to take in consideration that DAZN is a streaming app compared to ESPN, which is a network, we're going to go ahead and compare Canelo Alvarez's highest viewership on HBO compared to Crawford's on ESPN. Now, Canelo Alvarez, when he fought Crooklyn, he pulled in 2.2 to 2.3 million viewership on HBO. Now, mind you, this fight had heavy promotion. Matter of fact, the biggest promotion, since this fight got promoted on the biggest fight of the era, Floyd Mayweather versus Pacquiao. HBO promoted this fight heavy since Canelo versus Strickland was taking place a week after Floyd Mayweather versus Pacquiao. Therefore, they pulled in a lot of numbers. However, Crawford, with no promotion, still pulled in more numbers than Canelo Alvarez, just to prove that Crawford is making Bob Arum rich, not bankrupting Top Rank. That's why I stated earlier, Crawford is actually underpaid. Do you guys know Floyd Mayweather around 20 years ago, as Pretty Boy, he was getting paid $5 million, $10 million, almost $15 million sometimes per fight, and $1 million then, most likely $3 to $5 million now. However, some way, somehow, Crawford is overpaid, according to Bob, and he's bankrupting his pocket. When Crawford is pound for pound number one today, just like Floyd Mayweather was back in his Pretty Boy days. I'm not even talking about Money May. I'm talking about Pretty Boy. Furthermore, just to point out how hypocritical Bob's statements are, do you guys know Tyson Fury gets paid around $10 million guaranteed, all to cherry pick and flop at the same time at the gate while receiving heavy promotion? At one point, ESPN dropped 4 documentaries to promote a Tyson Fury fight. However, with all that heavy promotion, Tyson Fury only managed to sell 4,000 to 5,000 tickets, in which Bob had to give away thousands of tickets for free to fill up the stadium to make it look like something. He also couldn't compete with the Crawford numbers he was doing on ESPN. In the meantime, Tyson Fury receives $80 million contract for 3 fights on ESPN. On the other hand, Terence Crawford, who sells 12,000 to 15,000 tickets with his name alone ever since he blew up on the scene since 2014. Terence, who have the fight of the decade ahead of him against Errol Spence, who have a mega fight against Manny Pacquiao if he could land it, or any name at 147 from Porter, Ugas, Keith Thurman, Danny Garcia, and the list goes on and on and on, he receives no contract similar to that. In fact, Bob has the audacity to come out and say, I'm not going to go bankrupt promoting Crawford, when in fact Crawford receives the least amount of promotion on ESPN while pulling the highest viewership. That's why ESPN used Crawford name to promote Lomachenko as undefeated when they erased his loss. See, peep game, it wouldn't have been that effective if ESPN erased Lomachenko loss, placing him number 1 pound for pound over Crawford during a Lomachenko interview, because ESPN knows that Crawford pulled in the highest numbers. So if they do it during a Lomachenko interview, nobody's going to watch it. So it's not that effective. Therefore, to capitalize on fooling the casual fans, they brought in Crawford, told Crawford to his face that he's pound for pound number 1. In the meantime, on the screen, they put Lomachenko as undefeated, placing him number 1 on top of Crawford, just to show you what that hope insurance does. And because Crawford is on the coincidental list, it ain't a coincidence that Crawford is getting mistreated on his own network, that he's actually pulling in the highest viewership in. Furthermore, with the facts being stated, last but not least, Bob Arum stated, and I'll quote, he got to promote like Teofimo Lopez does, Shakur Stevenson does, like Floyd Mayweather did, Manny Pacquiao did. If he doesn't, then who the fuck need him? Question mark. He may be the greatest fighter in the world, but hey, I ain't going bankrupt promoting him. End of the quote. I mean, the irony of it all, for Bob to use Floyd Mayweather's name, who criticized Bob for not promoting him, just like Terence Crawford is doing today. When Pretty Boy was the #1 pound for pound in the world at the time, he was still signed under Bob Arum. He was signed under Top Rank. He was telling Bob Arum he wants to be promoted worldwide. And Bob will always tell Floyd, you're not going to be able to be a global star. Pretty much, he told Floyd, you don't have the X factor. Just like he's doing with Crawford today. Then Floyd wanted to make the big mega fights with Oscar, so on and so forth, in which Bob was pretty much the roadblock because he wouldn't do business the right way. Therefore, Floyd Mayweather bought himself out of his contract, paying Bob $750,000. He went and created PBC after becoming Money Made, making $1 billion in the process. That's just to prove that Bob couldn't have been any more wrong. That's why it's shocking to hear Bob use Floyd Mayweather name, Manny Pacquiao name, even Lopez and Shakur. All these fighters complained at certain point. Matter of fact, Teo was complaining before he fought Lomachenko about being lowballed. Manny Pacquiao ended up leaving Bob Arum. Floyd Mayweather left Bob Arum. Oscar De La Hoya left Bob Arum. Mikey Garcia left Bob Arum. Ruiz left Bob Arum. And they all went to PBC. That's why it's ironic for Bob to use names that could be used against him, like Manny Pacquiao and Floyd. On top of all of that, when it comes to promoting a fighter till the company goes bankrupt, that's exactly what they doing with Lomachenko, killing their credibility, putting on false advertisement, from erasing his loss to making the Teo fight for undisputed when it wasn't, so on and so forth. I don't see Lomachenko promoting himself. Matter of fact, after Teo schooled Lomachenko, in which Teo said when he went to that post-fight press conference, it felt like it was a funeral. However, guess who did not show up? Lomachenko, no, he did not show up. In order to wipe off the tears off his hardcore media fans. I will never forget the day when Rigondeaux, he pretty much schooled Donaire all around the board in a very entertaining fight in which Rigondeaux hurt Donaire in the first round, in the middle rounds, and in the last rounds. Matter of fact, the fans were cheering the whole night. However, can you believe Bob? He came out and bashed his own fighter when he's supposed to promote him. He said, I don't know how I'm going to promote a boring fighter like Rigondeaux. On the other hand, he did not keep the same energy with a guy that fought in a boring fashion against Teo. And that's exactly Lomachenko, who landed 7 power punches for the first 6 rounds, which is ridiculous. I don't hear Bob Arum bashing Lomachenko for being a sore loser and having a boring performance. But ironically, the fighter that doesn't just win, he wins by an actual entertaining fashion, by knockout fashion every single time, while pulling in heavy numbers on ESPN with little to no promotion on ESPN. Terence Crawford. Now Bob Arum is going to criticize Terence Crawford for not promoting himself. That's what they always do. When it comes to a fighter on the coincidental list, they will always try to find something to criticize. Think about it. Not everybody is camera friendly. You can't just put a camera in front of someone's face and tell them, hey, talk shit to promote a fight. That's not how it works. You got to catch a person at the right time. For example, you saw Crawford promote the heck out of the Kell Brook fight when he met Kell Brook face to face. During and after an altercation, that's the best time to put a camera in front of someone to promote them. Just like when Bud met Errol Spence. That was a classic that happened naturally. That's what Crawford is. He a natural promoter. What I mean by that, he will only say things that he truly means. He won't cap to sell a fight. Therefore, it's Bob Arum's job to promote and Terence Crawford's job to fight. So Bob Arum have to find a way to promote. And truth be told, with little promotion, while Terence receives a small purse, going up against a good name, just not a big name in the sport of boxing, he still managed to pull in tremendous numbers in the sport of boxing. Matter of fact, one of the highest numbers in the sport of boxing. And since boxing is pretty much the wild, wild west, when it comes to the judges, the referees, you just don't know what's really going on. If there's no good faith, I hope Terence is able to buy himself out of his contract. If Bob is going to be de-promoting him instead of promoting him. And to be continued on the next episode of Akhi, TV. Peace, and we out here.